Hinamaka is one of um, the, the agencies that's really trying to do something about drug abuse. They've got a lot of innovative programs. And one of the things they're trying to do is start a program similar to the Delancey Street program in San Francisco, which has been very successful over decades now. Yeah. And the Delancey Street program, as I understand it, really focuses on working with drug users for as long as it takes in a particular context. It's not an easy program for a drug user to go through, but it deals with the totality of your life. They have work programs, they have counseling programs, they have family reunification, but and they don't have a thing where, you know, your 30 days are up, so you're out. You're there until you're ready to go. So that's the kind of model I think Hawaii really needs to consider, and I'm really glad that Hinamaka is looking at it. Because they have to run successful businesses, the residents who work in the business have to be accountable. And that's a really, really important thing that the drug users really need to learn, to be accountable to themselves and to others around them.
And you know, running a successful business in itself
Right.
is great because it builds self-esteem.
Right.
It,
Yes.
you know, it teaches you that you can succeed. And I think that when once you start getting on a path of success, that it encourages you to do more.
Yes, success breeds success. Most drug offenders, and which means most inmates, were directed into drug treatment programs. Most probationers are directed into drug treatment programs, and many of them do well in the treatment programs, but once the program ends and they get back and they have to make it on their own, they're not able to. And there's several reasons for that, I think. First and foremost, people have this idea that drug treatment is like a panacea. You go to treatment, you take a pill, you're cured. Drug abuse is not like that. It's a continuing thing. It's a lifelong thing. It's learning life skills. It's learning new attitudes, new values. And these are people who mean well, who really want to, but they just don't have the means. They don't have they have to develop the inner will or whatever it takes. They have to, otherwise they're going to use drugs and probably commit more crimes again. Say a typical drug abuser, say, is 25, 30 years old. It took them 25 to 30 years to get to that point, and all of a sudden we want them to remake their lives in 30 days. It's not going to happen. To turn a drug user and make him or her into a taxpayer instead of simply a service consumer, I think is huge. It's a huge thing that we could do. More than 40% of the new prison intakes were people who had already been in the system. They were on probation or parole, and they violated the conditions of probation and parole, and they would come in to prison for lockup. And the probation and parole office would tell me that the vast majority, 80–90% of these violations were for drugs. So in other words, they would come into the system, we'd provide them treatment, and they'd go out in the community, and pretty soon they'd be back in the system, usually because of drug use. I know, like when I was at Waiawa, I got to know the inmates really well. I was pretty active around the yard, and I would see these inmates at Waiawa whose parents were drug abusers. And that's where they picked up this lifestyle.